nothing but KaneAI is a software testing agent that helps you author and write your test cases, and that too in just plain natural language. So the test plan that I was just talking about, that you write and create and pass it over to any of your automation engineers, KaneAI will now empower these automation engineers, or maybe will become the helping hand for your manual testers who can directly buy the created test flow or buy the story that has been decided or that you may have in your existing Jira. You can feed it to KaneAI, and KaneAI can go ahead and give you the raw uh, set of code in return. And the automation engineer maybe can now utilize that code and make the required necessary changes on top of that, because while the code was getting created on KaneAI, it was also simultaneously being executed. So it also validates that everything that was being written or that was being created is being performed accurately, uh, one to one, each step and each command. And any changes that has to be made, you can directly make those changes directly into the KaneAI playground itself. And for that change as well, automatically it gets retriggered and rerun there itself, and you can see it live in action if everything is working and everything sets up correctly. So it makes the overall job for both uh, the automation tester much more easier, becomes a helping hand, a friend for them while they are writing or executing their test cases. And for any of the manual testers who are trying to automate their current execution runs, it makes it much more easier and much more faster for them. So when I say that KaneAI understands the natural language or in plain English, let me quickly showcase you a demo. So I think as you can see on the screen, this is a KaneAI dashboard where you currently have an option to create web test, and you can also specify. So I'll go it here later. I'll go to create web test. As soon as I click on create web test, basically it will open up the KaneAI playground for me and give me a machine that you can see on the right hand side. On the left hand side, I can edit or give it all the actions that I want to perform, that I want to add in. So let's say, as I mentioned, uh, I want to log into create a login scenario for LambdaTest. So I'll go ahead and enter in these steps one by one. So in plain natural language, plain English. So I'm writing these steps in English, but since there's an LLM, the AI, it's automatically can understand any different language on which you want to write, in which you want to generate the test codes. Maybe German, maybe Chinese, or uh, any different language. We also have customers who are already using or trying to create the scripts using different language, and it's working seamlessly for them. So as you can see, I entered the first set of natural language as to go to the particular website. So with KaneAI, you not just uh, you're not just bound by using just the simple commands as to click, scroll, or maybe uh, but you can also add in complex commands like assert, if else statements, and even JavaScript executor as well, so that it goes ahead and performs the actions live for you and accordingly gets you the details as well. So I did add an assert command where I wanted to check if the login button was present on the viewport or not. As you can see, for me, I'm basically adding this plain English line. So, and you can imagine that if we wanted to do the same, the assert statement in case of an automation script, I'd have to go ahead and add a logic check and identify and then probably add in. Or if it's not visible, I might have to add in an if else statement on top of that. So since I have the test steps already written with me, I just simply go ahead and copy the existing test steps that I have. I fixed it here. So what KaneAI will do that basically with each of the prompts that I've added into the KaneAI, it will individually identify those prompts, try to understand what I want to do, what has to be performed using those prompts. So in natural language, and it will go ahead and individually perform those actions. So as you can see here, basically all of the individual commands that you can see here, it's automatically doing all the job for me. And on the right hand side, you can see that the current action is being performed live in front of you. So which makes it much more easier because you can see live in action that the complete test suit that you planned or that you created, which you just jotted it down on your side, you just gave it to KaneAI, and you can see that particular steps or actions being performed live for you. And as soon as this is done or this is completed, you'll get a complete actionable code on also, which you can maybe download and use it in your existing CI/CD, or you can even uh, run it directly. So I think once this is done, I'll probably showcase it to you as soon as the test is done. So I think this is almost on the last step of the test session. As you can see here, uh, all of these individual commands were executed, and you can see all of the actions that were being performed and the instruction that it has done. It has performed a visual query here. Here it went in and just simply entered the put in an input field. In the input field, enter the email ID that I pasted. So all of the actions that I basically gave it to, it performed individually with all of them. And anytime you want to abort the test, you want to pause the test in between, you want to make some changes, anything that you want to do is also possible here as well. So I think the test, as you can see, is done and has fired up a session for me. I'll just simply go ahead and finish this particular test case for now. So as soon as I click on finish, it gives me an option to save the existing test case that I created. So I can go ahead and create a project. So let's say if I'm working on a particular project, I can accordingly name the folder as a project, and I can even add multiple folders inside of that as well. And I can add any particular test name that I want along with the description uh, that's needed basis the test that I'm running. Then I can also select what different type of tests did I create using KaneAI, and also select the status of the test, if it's completed, if it's closed on a simple draft as well. I'll go ahead and simply save this test case. The particular test case that gets saved, this will now directly go ahead and open the LambdaTest test manager, which you might have seen a glimpse of it yesterday while Akash was showcasing it to you. In the test manager itself, you can see that each individual prompts that I had given, the complete set of code or complete set of lines have been added here. And in front of each prompt, you can see that you also have the screenshot option as well. And if I click on the screenshot, basically what it showcases you is the element with which the KaneAI interacted while it was performing the action for that particular prompt. So you can see that for the login, it highlighted the login. If I go into the email, you'd see. So it will clearly show and highlight to you that which particular element it was working with and give the result back. So once this is done, I think what every one of you would be interested to see is how the code looks like. So on the top, you can see there are multiple tabs we have here. So I'll go into the code tab. So as you can see, the code is currently getting generated. So since uh, the LLM performed all of the actions, it did all of the actions, now it comes back, and depending on uh, the number of steps it has or how big of the test case it would take some time to generate that complete code with all of the requirements, the complete test class, or whatever is needed for you to basically go ahead and run or generate those tests. So I think I'll not wait here. I'll go into one of the similar tests that I already have on my site. Let me this also has another version. I'll go into another one. Yeah. So similar to the test that I showed you earlier, this also has similar. So you can see the complete set of code was generated. And now if I go back or click onto view code, basically what you would be able to see is a complete test.py file, which is a complete test file of the prompts that I had entered. And you can also see that for each of the prompts that I had actually given to KaneAI, it has went ahead and created a code for me, and it has executed that code as well. And similar to any of your Python scripts, you also have a requirements.txt file created for you. And you also have an operations metadata as well. basically what KaneAI does is that for each individual element or each individual command that you're performing, it will look at that particular element, it will look at that particular DOM of that particular element and save the details in the operations metadata for each individual. So while I was opening the URL, I was looking for the login, it went ahead and saved maximum details that it could fetch for me, along with the complete set of instructions, the login details, sorry, instructions, the locator details, etc. And now this can be utilized while the test is running. Let's say tomorrow your login flow or your overall flow will still remain the same, but let's say the locator for this particular um, yeah, locator for a particular element, let's say the password input field, the locator for this was changed, for example. But it won't matter in case of KaneAI, because KaneAI is still looking at the overall actions or the derivatives that it has to get. So the action that you have to perform or action you have suggested KaneAI to perform is go ahead and enter the password into this particular password field. Even if the locator for that password field changes, KaneAI is powerful enough to identify the password field, locate it again, and if there are any changes in the overall locator, it will go ahead and update the operations metadata so that you have the new set of locators saved in here, and it will automatically go ahead and run those tests as well with the correct set of locators as well. So once you have this, the only thing left is if I go and close this. So now you have the code. So as you saw, in merely a time of 10 minutes, I was able to create a complete set of code for a complete login scenario that I had. From there, I had got a complete set of code. And now, as I mentioned, that you can even execute the same set of tests from like LambdaTest itself. So you can just simply click on this HyperExecute. So I think what we discussed right now regarding the HyperExecute, the complete set of tests can be executed directly on the HyperExecute platform from here. So I think this is cute. Yeah. Right. So depending on whatever was there in the requirements.txt file, it will automatically set up the pre-steps. Then the particular test will be added in the scenario. And if there is anything in the post step, it will go ahead and execute that as well. So basically in mere just 10 minutes, I was able to completely automate and trigger a full blown test case, and with complete sets of validations and results that you can see live while you're running the test case as well. Now, there might come a question. So I think I'll go back to the test that I just created. So now you have this particular code, but let's say now, since this was the first assertion of that test code that was created, now there might come a question, hey, what if I want to change or I want to update the existing set of code? Can we do that with uh, KaneAI? So that is for sure possible. You can easily go ahead and make sure that any of your existing codes that you have written can be updated by adding, or you want to add more steps, you can easily do that. So I'll just go ahead and click on edit test steps. So this will now go ahead and again open all of these steps for me in the KaneAI playground once again. And as soon as the steps are open, this will go ahead and execute and re-execute all of those tests just to make sure everything is still as is, and accordingly understand the complete requirements there. And once that is executed, I think and once those tests are executed, I think some reason due to my internet it's taking some time. Let me try it again. Just give me a second. Right. So as you can see, all of those steps that I had in my existing cases have already been fed into the KaneAI playground, and all of those individual steps are now going ahead and this is now performing the steps again, just to make sure that everything still remains the same and everything is identified. And you can see this is now much faster than how it did for the first time. So while the first time you go ahead and create a test case with KaneAI, it would take some time because each individual prompt or natural statements that you're feeding it into KaneAI, it's understanding those prompts, it's trying to uh, decode those prompts and accordingly perform an action basis the visual uh, viewport or basis the web application or the native application that's open. But now, since it's already done all of those actions, you can see here it has gone ahead and already almost reached the last step. So I'll just wait for it to complete these steps, and I'll add a couple of more steps onto the KaneAI itself, onto the test itself. One more thing that you might have a question is, so let's say once the test is created, is it possible uh, for you to manually interact, or let's say if there is some kind of command that you cannot, or some kind of prompt that you're not able to iterate or give it to KaneAI, can you manually perform that particular uh, step onto KaneAI? So KaneAI also gives you that option as well, where you can just simply go ahead and click on manual interaction. This will open up the window on the right hand side, the same action, but I think there's something I did. Let me relaunch it again. Just all of the steps. I have to start this for now. So I think it'll there was some issue on my side, but what it'll basically do is, as you mentioned, that if there is a prompt which you're not able to articulate or which you're not able to provide to KaneAI, you can just simply go into the manual interaction option where it'll give you the access to the machine that you see here on the right hand side, and any actions that you perform here, basically maybe click, drag, drop, everything, whatever you perform here on the right hand side, automatically that action will be iterated here on the left hand side as a natural language command or as a prompt, similar to how you have added all of the rest of the prompts. And once the prompt gets added, once all of the new steps are added into the machine, into the test steps, you can simply go ahead and save those changes to the existing script, and you can have a second version of your code as well. So basically, with KaneAI and Test Manager, it will easily help you keep all of those repositories identified. So I think this is done with performing those actions that I already performed. I'll just go ahead and try to click on manual interaction once again. Now you can see that it is recording the manual interactions that I'm performing. So let's say if I want to change network throttling here, I want to maybe change it to 3G. And once that's changed, let's say I want to just simply end the session. So whatever actions I'm performing, you can see it has articulated that in the same natural language prompt. And all of those actions have been recorded on the left-hand side itself. And once all of that is done, I'll just simply go ahead and save the changes. So similar to how with any of the new changes that you make in your existing code, you get a commit message, which you can save. Now, as soon as you commit this, the existing uh, set of script that you had in a test manager, that would still remain there, but you'll get a second version. As you can see here, v2 is created for this particular version with the additional new steps which is added. So you get all of the versions, whatever you're creating, all of the new additional steps that you're creating, you get all of them saved and stored here on the test manager for LambdaTest. And here itself, if I go back, it's generating, for some reason, refresh this. But basically, it will generate the code for the new set of steps as well. I'll check this later, what happened here. And once that's run, I can maybe go into the runs to see the executions. I think I didn't execute here. I executed on the previous code that I showed you. Here, if there are even issues as well that have been found, I can directly mark or highlight those issues and directly raise it to teams as well. And then comes in the version history as well. So depending on the different sets of code, so this was just 2 iterations, but maybe with your editions, there might be 10 or more than 20 iterations of code that you have, and there might be 20 different versions of that code saved down here. So you can basically come in and compare between any existing versions that you have, and it will easily help you to identify the differences between the both of the versions that you're comparing and help you identify what were those identical differences. This makes us very much powerful because you're not just getting a platform to author your test cases, but it'll efficiently author by just in plain natural language. Once it's authored, you'll get the complete test repository, which is getting created in the existing language or framework that you want. What I showcased it to you was in case of Python. We also have added support for Java as well, and you're also coming in with support for all of the rest of the languages and frameworks, whatever you might be using, we can give that to you itself. And once this is done, you have the complete versions, each individual versions of that code and the version history, which will help you identify and figure out any sets of code. And this particular code as well that is generated, as I mentioned, there's no foundation that you have to run it on HyperExecute itself, but you can download that code to your local. Maybe you can execute it on your local machine, or let's say if you want to execute that particular set of code onto and add it into your existing CI/CD pipelines. The code that is created is CI/CD ready, and you can directly add all of the dependencies and the code directly to your existing pipelines as well. Quickly taking on to one more thing under KaneAI. So what we did as of now, or what we saw was you had or some test steps planned, or you had some uh, actions that were planned one after the other, which you were feeding it into KaneAI, and basis that KaneAI was performing those actions. But let's say you do not have the complete set of actions ready, but you have an objective which is ready on your side, or you have a story that you have on your side, and you want the code to be created for that story. So KaneAI is powerful enough to get and understand your overall objective depending on what you add. So let's say if I take an example, and our HR team, maybe my HR team wants to add new position onto our website, for example, on our careers page. And once that's added, they want to make sure that the particular position is available, not available. They want to create and set up that test case. That's a very basic example that I'm going through, but they want to identify that test case. So the objective becomes here is to identify if a particular role is available or open in the particular website. Similar to that, you might have different goals, different objectives for your particular application, which you can give and feed it to KaneAI. So let's say I'll showcase the one that I just mentioned. So I want to check if a role is available on LambdaTest. Just give me a quick second. Sorry. Let's check for any mistakes that I made. So this is the only objective that I have. And to make sure if a customer success architect position is open in the careers page. So I'll just simply go ahead and enter in the objective. As soon as I enter in the objective, I'll start analyzing the objective. Depending on added conditions or test data that are needed in case of this particular objective, you can add it. Let's say in your case, it's behind the login. You can add in the login. You can add more outcomes to it. If there is some kind of inputs that you want to write, you can simply add that. I'll just simply go ahead and review and schedule this particular test. I'll also select folder where I want this to be created, and again type or select the type of test I'm not doing, and I'll schedule a test case. Basically, what it'll do is, looking at my objective, it'll go ahead and open up the KaneAI playground. It'll go ahead and do all of the work on its own, starting from thinking of what the next action should be, thinking about what the next command it should fire, and creating its own prompts. If I go into a live preview, you can see it in action. I just entered that I want the role to be checked in. It opened up the page for me. Now it's checking for open positions. And as you can see earlier, there were steps which were getting performed that you could see, but now you can see the system is stating as thinking, which means it's actually the AI itself is taking care of looking at what the next action should be. I think here it completed it because the role that I tried to add it got that role, identified that role, and it is giving me the result back. So I think I'll go back to system is idle. It's done here. Go back. So as you can see that that particular role or that particular objective was done. So it checked and it clicked on the open role and identified that yes, a role was available, and it completed the work. So similarly, so this was a very basic example, but similarly, complex objectives that you want to add, major objectives that you want to add, even without writing or managing or planning a test case, you can just come in with the objective and provide it to KaneAI. It will give you steps as well as a complete recorded code in uh, within mere time of minutes. And later, any other additional additions you want to do on that code, any more modifications you want to do on that code, or the automations you want to perform can be easily done and can become a very much helping hand for both automation as well as your manual testers. So I think this was all about KaneAI.